Emma Carter's seemingly perfect life unravels when she discovers her husband, Ryan, is having an affair with a younger woman, Vanessa. What begins as a betrayal quickly spirals into a tangled web of lies, blackmail, and corruption, revealing Ryan's connection to a dangerous criminal syndicate. As Emma digs deeper, risking her safety to uncover the truth, she faces shocking betrayals and moral dilemmas that leave her questioning who she can trust. With mounting tension and escalating danger, the story explores themes of infidelity, deceit, and justice, keeping viewers enraged and hooked as the secrets unravel. It started like any other Friday night in the Carter household. Pizza boxes stacked on the kitchen counter, a half-finished bottle of wine, and the sound of laughter echoing through the living room. But by the end of the weekend, the laughter would stop, and the illusion of the perfect marriage would shatter. Emma Carter was the kind of woman people admired. Smart, confident, and always put together. She ran a thriving interior design business, and still managed to pick up the kids from soccer practice. To outsiders, she had it all: a handsome husband, 2 adorable kids, and a home straight out of a catalog. Her husband, Ryan Carter, was the textbook definition of success. Tall, athletic, and charismatic. He built a name for himself as a real estate broker, closing million-dollar deals and charming clients with ease. But behind closed doors, cracks were starting to show. Emma wasn't blind. She noticed the late nights, the mysterious phone calls, and the sudden interest in work trips. At first, she told herself it was stress. Ryan's job demanded long hours, and his boss wasn't exactly forgiving. But when she found lipstick on his collar, the shade she never wore, Emma knew. Still, she didn't confront him. Not yet. Instead, she started paying attention. Who was he texting during dinner? Why did his phone suddenly have a password? And most importantly, who was Vanessa? The name that popped up in his call log at 11:43 p.m. Emma wasn't the type to jump to conclusions. She needed proof. So she did what any suspicious wife with access to her husband's email account would do. She snooped, and what she found made her stomach drop. There were emails, lots of them. Vanessa wasn't just a co-worker. She was the project manager Ryan couldn't stop praising at the office Christmas party. The emails started out professional enough, but by the 3rd thread, the tone shifted. Words like "miss you" and "can't wait to see you" were sprinkled between project updates. Emma sat in the dark, staring at the screen, her mind racing. She felt sick, but anger quickly took over. She wasn't going to sit back and let her marriage fall apart, not without a fight. The next morning, Emma put on her game face. She smiled at Ryan over breakfast and kissed him goodbye before he left for work. But as soon as the door closed, she went into detective mode. Step 1. Call his office. "Good morning, Hartman Realty. How can I help you?" Emma forced a cheerful tone. "Hi, this is Emma Carter, Ryan's wife. I was hoping to surprise him for lunch, but I can't seem to reach him. Is he in the office today?" The receptionist hesitated. Actually, Ryan's out today. He mentioned a site visit, but he didn't say where." Emma's stomach flipped. A site visit? On a Saturday? "Thanks so much." Emma hung up before the receptionist could ask any questions. Step 2. Track his location. Emma wasn't proud of it, but she'd installed a family tracker app months ago when Ryan started coming home late. She opened the app and waited for the GPS to load. His location pinged at the Carlton, a high-end hotel downtown. Not exactly a construction site. Emma grabbed her keys. If Ryan was going to lie, she was going to catch him in it. 20 minutes later, she stood in the hotel lobby, her heart pounding. She scanned the crowd, looking for Ryan's familiar figure. The elevator doors dinged, and her breath caught. There he was. Ryan stepped out of the elevator, laughing at something Vanessa, yes, that Vanessa, had just said. She was younger than Emma expected, blonde, model thin, and draped in a silk blouse that probably cost more than Emma's entire wardrobe. Emma froze. For a split second, she considered walking away, pretending she hadn't seen anything, but then Vanessa touched Ryan's arm, and Emma saw red. She marched across the lobby, her heels clicking like gunshots. "Ryan!" His name sliced through the air, and he turned, his face going pale. "Emma, what are you doing here? I could ask you the same thing." Her voice was calm, but her hands trembled. She looked at Vanessa, who suddenly found the marble floor very interesting. And you must be Vanessa. Vanessa opened her mouth to respond, but Emma held up a hand. Save it. Ryan stepped closer, lowering his voice. Emma, let's not do this here. Oh, you mean let's not make a scene? Emma laughed, but there was no humor in it. Too late for that. People were starting to stare. Vanessa mumbled something about leaving and slipped out the door. Ryan grabbed Emma's arm and steered her toward a corner. Look, he hissed. It's not what it looks like. Emma raised an eyebrow. Really? Because it looks like you just walked out of a hotel with another woman. Ryan ran a hand through his hair. It's complicated. No, Ryan, it's simple. Emma's voice broke, but she held his gaze. You lied, and now I want the truth. For the first time, Ryan looked scared, and Emma wasn't sure if it was because he'd been caught, or because he knew this was only the beginning. Emma sat in her car outside the hotel, her hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. Ryan's words echoed in her head. It's complicated. No, it wasn't complicated. It was betrayal, plain and simple. For the first time in their marriage, Emma didn't feel like the woman who had everything under control. She felt small, angry, and lost. Her first instinct was to cry, but the tears didn't come. Instead, her mind raced. She couldn't let Ryan see her like this, broken. If he thought he could walk away from this unscathed, he had another thing coming. Emma wiped her face, started the car, and drove home. But when she walked through the front door, the weight of it all came crashing down. She sank into the couch, staring at the family photos on the wall. Pictures of vacations, birthdays, anniversaries, all lies, at least. That's how they felt now. Later that evening, Ryan came home, acting as though nothing had happened. He tossed his keys on the counter and kissed Emma on the cheek, but she pulled away. We need to talk. His face darkened. Emma, no. She held up a hand, her voice firm. You don't get to brush this off. Who is she, Ryan? Don't give me excuses or half-truths, I want the truth. For a moment he hesitated, but then he sighed and sat down across from her. Vanessa's someone I work with. We've been seeing each other for a few months. Emma's breath hitched, but she forced herself to stay calm. So it's serious? No. He shook his head. It's not like that I don't love her. It was just a mistake? Emma cut him off. Don't you dare try to downplay this, Ryan. You didn't just trip and fall into an affair. You made a choice. Ryan's shoulders slumped. I know, and I'm sorry I screwed up. But I love you, Emma. I love our family. I don't want to lose this. Emma stared at him, searching his face for sincerity, but all she saw was guilt. Was it guilt for what he'd done, or guilt for getting caught? You already lost it, she said quietly, before standing up and walking out of the room. The days that followed were tense. Ryan tried to act like things could go back to normal, but Emma wasn't having it. She needed space to think. Meanwhile, she started digging deeper. Ryan may have admitted to the affair, but something about the whole situation still felt off. She logged into their shared bank account and noticed several large withdrawals over the past few months, payments she didn't recognize. Then there were the phone records. Ryan had been texting Vanessa a lot more than he let on, including during family dinners and late at night. Emma wasn't just dealing with a cheater. She was dealing with a liar. But before she could confront him again, something unexpected happened. Vanessa showed up at her office. Emma froze the moment she saw her standing in the doorway, nervously clutching her purse. What the hell are you doing here? Vanessa stepped inside, shutting the door behind her. Please, just hear me out. Emma folded her arms. You've got 2 minutes. Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. I didn't know he was married when it started. He told me you were separated, I swear. Emma's jaw clenched. And when you found out, what then? I ended it. Vanessa wiped her eyes. But he didn't. He kept calling me, showing up at my place, and then last week... She stopped, pulling her phone out of her purse. What? Emma snapped. Vanessa handed over the phone, showing a series of text messages from Ryan. You can't just walk away from this. I need to see you. If you don't talk to me, I'll tell Emma it was your idea. Emma felt the blood drain from her face. He said what? He's trying to pin this on me, Vanessa said. I wanted to warn you, because I think he's hiding something bigger. Emma's stomach twisted. Was it possible that Ryan's affair wasn't just about lust, but leverage? That night, Emma decided she couldn't wait any longer. She sat Ryan down and showed him Vanessa's messages. His face went pale. "She's lying." Emma crossed her arms. "Don't insult me, Ryan. I already know about the money, the withdrawals, the late-night calls. What else are you hiding?" Ryan's mouth opened, but no words came out. "That's what I thought," Emma said. "You have until the end of the week to get out." The next few days were a blur. Ryan moved out, but Emma couldn't shake the feeling that the story wasn't over. She kept digging, combing through emails, texts, and receipts. And then she found it. A hidden bank account in Ryan's name, thousands of dollars wired to Vanessa, and even more to someone named Eric Harper. Emma's heart raced as she Googled the name Eric Harper. Wasn't just anyone, he was a private investigator. Why would Ryan need a private investigator? Emma's phone buzzed. It was Vanessa. "I think someone's following me," she said, her voice trembling. Emma grabbed her keys and headed out the door. She had a feeling this was about to get a lot worse before it got better. Make sure to like, share, and comment below. And if you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more gripping content. Emma's tires screeched as she pulled up outside Vanessa's apartment. Her heart pounded as she scanned the parking lot. Was someone really following Vanessa, or was this just paranoia? Vanessa threw open the door before Emma could knock. Her eyes were puffy, and her hands shook as she motioned Emma inside. "I saw him again," Vanessa whispered, pacing the living room. "The same guy from earlier. He was parked across the street. He didn't even try to hide it this time." Emma peeked through the blinds and spotted a black SUV idling near the corner. Her stomach knotted. "How long has this been happening?" 2 weeks. Vanessa sat down and buried her face in her hands. "I thought it would stop after I told Ryan to leave me alone, but it's only gotten worse." Emma's mind raced. Why would Ryan hire a private investigator to follow Vanessa? Was it to intimidate her, or was there something bigger he was trying to cover up? "Pack a bag," Emma said, her voice steady. "You're coming with me." Vanessa blinked. "What?" "You're not safe here," Emma said. "I'm not leaving you alone until we figure out what's going on." Vanessa hesitated, but eventually nodded. She stuffed clothes into a duffel bag, and within minutes, they were in Emma's car, heading back to her house. Once inside, Emma locked the doors and pulled out her laptop. She had to figure out what Ryan was hiding, and Vanessa was the key to unraveling it. "Tell me everything," Emma said, opening a notepad. Vanessa hesitated but finally spoke. "It started 6 months ago. Ryan approached me at work and asked me to help him with a side project. At first, it was just business, but then things escalated." She shifted uncomfortably. "I didn't realize how deep he was in until he started asking me to move money for him." Emma's eyes narrowed. "Move money?" Vanessa nodded. "Transfers, wire payments. He said it was for investments, but the amounts didn't make sense, and then he started panicking. He kept saying someone was after him." Emma felt a chill run down her spine. "Did he say who?" "No." Vanessa shook her head. "But he kept talking about covering his tracks and needing more time." Emma's hands trembled as she pulled up Ryan's bank records. The payments to Eric Harper, the investigator, stood out like a red flag. And then there was another name, Brent Holdings, LLC. She typed it into a search engine and froze when the results loaded. Brent Holdings wasn't a business. It was a shell company, and it had been linked to a string of fraud investigations. Emma slammed the laptop shut. "Ryan's not just cheating. He's laundering money." Vanessa's eyes widened. "What?" "Think about it," Emma said. "The payments, the secret accounts, the investigator following you. He's not trying to intimidate you. He's trying to make sure you don't talk." Vanessa's face went pale. "Emma, what do we do?" Before Emma could answer, her phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. She hesitated before answering. "Hello?" "You need to stop digging, Emma." The voice was low and cold, her breath caught in her throat. "Who is this?" A pause. Then, "You know who." The line went dead. Emma stood frozen, the phone still pressed to her ear. Vanessa stared at her, wide-eyed. "What did they say?" Emma snapped out of it, shoving her phone into her pocket. "Pack another bag, we're leaving." Vanessa didn't argue. Minutes later, they were in Emma's car again, this time driving out of town. Emma's hands shook as she gripped the steering wheel. Whoever was watching Vanessa, and now her, was serious. They checked into a small motel off the highway, and Emma bolted the door behind them. She pulled out her laptop and started scanning through Ryan's financial records again, this time looking for connections between him and Brent Holdings. Then she found it. A series of payments from Brent Holdings to Eric Harper. Ryan wasn't just laundering money, he was working for someone. Vanessa sat on the edge of the bed, hugging her knees. "Do you think they'll come after us?" Emma's jaw tightened. "Not if we expose them first." She stayed up most of the night, piecing together the timeline. Ryan's affair with Vanessa had been a cover. He needed her to make the transfers look legitimate. And when Vanessa tried to walk away, he turned to threats. But the real question was, how far would Ryan, or whoever he was working for, go to protect their operation? The next morning, Emma got her answer. They woke to the sound of shattering glass. A rock had been thrown through the motel window, and a note was taped to it. "Stop digging, or next time it won't be a warning." Vanessa screamed, but Emma grabbed her arm and pulled her toward the door. "We need to go now." They barely made it to the car before Emma's phone buzzed again. It was a text from an unknown number. "I told you to stop." Emma's hands shook as she shoved the phone into her bag. She didn't have time to panic. "We're not running anymore," she said, her voice firm. "We're going to the police." Vanessa hesitated. "But what if they're in on it?" Emma clenched her jaw. "Then we find someone who isn't." They drove straight to the nearest police station, but as soon as they walked in, Emma's stomach sank. The officer at the desk was already on his phone, glancing their way. Emma grabbed Vanessa's arm. "We're leaving." "What? Why?" "Because we can't trust them." They rushed back to the car and sped off. Emma's mind raced. She needed proof, something solid she could use to blow this whole thing open. Then it hit her. The emails. Vanessa looked at her, confused. "Ryan's emails," Emma said. "They're all in his work account. If we can get into his computer, we'll have everything we need." "But his office—" "I know." Emma's voice was firm. "We're breaking in." By nightfall, they were parked outside Ryan's office building. Emma had managed to convince the cleaning staff to leave the back door unlocked for a late-night meeting. Once inside, Vanessa kept watch while Emma booted up Ryan's computer. Her fingers flew across the keyboard as she searched for the files. "There," Emma said, pointing to a folder labeled Archives. She clicked it open and froze. Emails, invoices, and contracts. Proof of everything. "Got it." But before she could copy the files, the office lights flickered on. Ryan stood in the doorway, his face pale and his eyes blazing. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Vanessa gasped, but Emma stood her ground. "Exposing you." Ryan stepped closer, his voice low. "You don't know what you're getting into, Emma. These people, they don't play games. Neither do I." She grabbed the flash drive and shoved it into her pocket. Ryan lunged for her, but Vanessa stepped in between them. "Don't touch her!" Ryan froze, glaring at them both. "You're making a mistake," he hissed. "No," Emma shot back. "You did." They ran out of the office, leaving Ryan shouting behind them. Emma knew this wasn't over, not by a long shot, but she also knew one thing for certain. Ryan had underestimated her. And now, it was his turn to be afraid. Make sure to like, share, and comment below. Don't forget to subscribe for the next part of the story. Emma's heart pounded as she and Vanessa sped away from Ryan's office, the stolen flash drive clutched tightly in her hand. The streets were dark and empty, but Emma couldn't shake the feeling that they were being followed. Vanessa glanced nervously in the rearview mirror. "Do you think he'll come after us?" Emma gripped the steering wheel. "He won't have to. He'll send someone else." The weight of that realization hung heavy in the car. Ryan wasn't acting alone, and whoever he was working for wouldn't let this slide. Emma's eyes darted to the flash drive sitting on the dashboard. It was the only leverage they had, but it also made them targets. By the time they reached Emma's house, it was nearly midnight. She pulled into the driveway and killed the engine, motioning for Vanessa to stay put. Emma scanned the street before stepping out, her pulse quickening at every shadow. They hurried inside and locked the doors. Emma immediately went to her laptop and plugged in the flash drive. Vanessa hovered behind her. "What if it's encrypted?" "It doesn't matter," Emma said, her voice steely. We'll find a way to crack it. The files loaded quickly, and Emma's breath hitched as she scrolled through them. It wasn't just bank transfers and emails. There were contracts, offshore account details, and even surveillance reports. Vanessa leaned closer. Is that me? Emma clicked on one of the files. Photos of Vanessa leaving work, walking to her car, and entering her apartment filled the screen. They've been watching you for months, Emma said, her voice barely above a whisper. And not just you. She opened another folder and froze. There were photos of her dropping the kids off at school, picking up groceries, even sitting at her desk. Vanessa covered her mouth. Oh my God, Emma, what is this? Emma's hands shook as she clicked through more files. It wasn't just surveillance. It was blackmail material. Photos, recordings, and emails pieced together to frame her. They were setting me up, Emma said, her voice hardening. If I found out the truth, they were going to pin everything on me. Vanessa stared at her. We have to take this to the police. Emma shook her head. We can't trust the police, not yet. Before Vanessa could argue, Emma's phone buzzed. She picked it up and froze when she saw the text. You're in over your head. Give us the drive, and this ends tonight. Her blood ran cold. She turned to Vanessa. We need to move now. They barely had time to grab their things before headlights appeared outside the house. Emma peeked through the blinds and saw the black SUV idling at the curb. They found us! Vanessa panicked. What do we do? Emma's mind raced. We run! They slipped out the back door and into the alley. Emma's heart pounded as they sprinted through the shadows, but the sound of footsteps behind them made her blood run cold. Faster! Emma hissed, pulling Vanessa along. They ducked into an abandoned building, pressing themselves against the wall. As the footsteps grew louder, Emma held her breath, clutching the flash drive so tightly it dug into her palm. Then the footsteps stopped. Vanessa whimpered, but Emma squeezed her hand. Stay quiet. Minutes felt like hours as they waited, but eventually, the footsteps faded. Emma exhaled sharply, her mind already racing for the next move. We can't keep running, Vanessa said, her voice trembling. Emma nodded. I know it's time to fight back. The next morning, Emma called the one person she thought she could trust, her old college friend Nick, who worked as a tech analyst for the FBI. She met him at a diner outside town, keeping her head low as she slid into the booth. Nick raised an eyebrow. This better be good, Emma. I had to call in a favor just to meet you off the record. Emma pulled out the flash drive and set it on the table. It's more than good, it's evidence. Nick inserted the drive into his laptop, his expression shifting from curiosity to disbelief as he scrolled through the files. Jesus, Emma! Do you know what this is? Yes, Emma said. And I need your help. Nick looked around nervously. If half of this is true, you're in serious danger. I already know that. Emma leaned forward. Can you trace it? Find out who's behind this? Nick hesitated, but finally nodded. I'll need time. You don't have time, Emma said firmly. Neither do I. Nick worked quickly, decrypting files and tracing IP addresses. After what felt like hours, he leaned back, his face pale. Ryan wasn't just laundering money, Nick said. He was moving it for a syndicate, a corporate front tied to offshore crime networks. Emma's heart sank. How high does this go? Nick shook his head. Higher than you want to know. Vanessa's voice trembled. So what now? Nick unplugged the drive and handed it back to Emma. We expose them, but you'll need to be smart about it. If they think you're a threat, they'll come after you hard. Emma's jaw tightened. Let them come. By the time they left the diner, Emma's resolve had hardened. She wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting for Vanessa, for her kids, and for everyone these people had destroyed. But first, she needed to make Ryan talk. Later that night, Emma cornered Ryan at his new apartment. He opened the door, his eyes widening when he saw her. Emma, she shoved her way inside. Save it, I know everything. Ryan's face paled. You don't understand. No, you don't understand. Emma held up the flash drive. I have it all, Ryan. The money, the shell companies, the surveillance. And unless you want this going public, you're going to tell me everything. Ryan's shoulders slumped. It's not that simple. Make it simple. He hesitated, but Emma stepped closer. They're already watching me, Ryan watching Vanessa. And they're not going to stop until we're out of the way. So if you care about anyone besides yourself, start talking. Ryan's voice broke. They own everything, Emma. The cops, the courts, hell, even some politicians. Once you're in, you can't get out. Emma's stomach twisted. Then why involve me? I didn't mean to, Ryan shouted. I got in over my head, and when I tried to back out, they threatened me, said they'd ruin us. I thought I could fix it, but then Vanessa. He stopped, looking at Emma with desperation. I never meant for this to happen. Emma stared at him, her anger boiling over. You don't get to play the victim, Ryan. Not after what you've done. Ryan reached for her, but she stepped back. I'll fix this, he pleaded. Just give me time. Emma's voice was ice cold. You're out of time. She turned and walked out, her pulse racing. Ryan was broken, but he was still dangerous. And now, Emma knew. If she didn't take these people down first, they were going to take her down instead. Make sure to like, share, and comment below. Don't forget to subscribe for the next part of the story. Emma drove through the dark, empty streets, her grip tightening around the steering wheel. Her mind raced, replaying Ryan's confession over and over. He was in over his head. He couldn't get out. But that wasn't her problem anymore. Her problem was the people Ryan worked for, and the fact that they were watching her every move. Vanessa sat in the passenger seat, nervously scrolling through her phone. Are you sure this is a good idea? No, Emma admitted. But it's the only one we've got. She pulled into the parking lot of a rundown storage facility. Nick had told her to meet him here with the flash drive. He said he'd bring backup, people he trusted. But as Emma killed the engine, doubt crept in. What if it was a setup? Vanessa swallowed hard. What if this is a trap? We don't have a choice, Emma said. We need his help. She stepped out of the car, scanning the lot. It was too quiet, the kind of quiet that made her stomach churn. Then she saw him, Nick, standing near the entrance with two other men. Emma motioned for Vanessa to stay close as they approached. Nick's eyes were sharp. You brought the drive? Emma nodded and held it up. It's all here. One of Nick's men reached for it, but Emma pulled back. Not until I know what you're doing with it. Nick raised a hand. Relax. We're not here to screw you over. We're here to protect you. But before Emma could hand it over, headlights swept across the parking lot, a black SUV. Vanessa gasped. They found us. Nick's men sprang into action, pulling out guns and motioning Emma and Vanessa behind cover. Get down. The SUV skidded to a stop, and three men jumped out, armed and ready. Nick fired first, dropping one of them before the others ducked behind the vehicle. Bullets ricocheted off the concrete, and Vanessa screamed. Emma clutched the flash drive, her heart pounding. We can't stay here, she shouted. Nick nodded. Get to the car now. Emma grabbed Vanessa and sprinted back toward the car. Dodging gunfire, Nick and his men held the attackers off, but Emma knew it wouldn't last long. They barely made it inside before Emma slammed the gas. Tires screeched as she sped out of the lot, her pulse racing. Are they following us? Vanessa asked, her voice shaking. Emma glanced in the mirror. The SUV was gone. I don't think so. But her relief was short-lived. Her phone buzzed, and she didn't need to look at it to know who it was. Vanessa did. She picked it up and read the message aloud. You can't run forever. Emma clenched her jaw. Watch me. They drove straight to Nick's safe house, a small cabin outside the city. Nick was already there, waiting for them. We need to end this, Emma said, slamming the flash drive onto the table. Nick nodded. We will, but we need a plan. Over the next hour, they combed through the files, piecing together the evidence. It wasn't just money laundering. It was bigger than that. Ryan's bosses were moving millions through fake businesses, bribing politicians, and blackmailing anyone who got in their way. This is enough to take them down, Nick said. But we need to go public. Vanessa shook her head. Public, are you crazy? They'll kill us before we get the chance. Emma stood. Not if we hit them first. Nick raised an eyebrow. What are you thinking? Emma grabbed the flash drive. We leak it. Everything: emails, contracts, surveillance photos. We make sure it's so big that they can't cover it up. Nick hesitated. Once this is out, there's no going back. Emma met his eyes. I'm not going back. The plan was risky, but it was their only shot. Nick's contacts in the FBI agreed to release the files under anonymous sources. Within hours, the story started spreading. News outlets picked it up. Reporters began digging, and Emma's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. But then came the fallout. Vanessa spotted it first, a news alert about Ryan's arrest. They got him. Emma's stomach dropped. What? Vanessa turned the screen toward her. Ryan had been taken into custody for questioning, but the report hinted at more charges. Nick frowned. They're throwing him under the bus to protect themselves. Emma didn't feel sorry for him, not after what he'd done. But she also knew this wasn't over. Ryan might take the fall, but the people pulling the strings weren't going down without a fight. Sure enough, the next text made her blood run cold. You think this ends with Ryan? You're next. Emma showed it to Nick. What do we do now? Nick's jaw tightened. We finish what we started. They spent the next 2 days gathering more evidence, feeding reporters, and making sure the story stayed alive. But Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. And she was right. Late one night, the power went out in the cabin. Nick grabbed his gun, motioning for Emma and Vanessa to stay down. Then came the sound of footsteps. Emma's heart raced as she clutched the flash drive. Nick whispered, "Stay behind me." The door burst open, and chaos erupted. Shots rang out, shattering windows and tearing through walls. Nick fired back, but Emma knew they were outnumbered. "Run!" he shouted. Emma grabbed Vanessa and bolted through the back door. They sprinted into the woods, branches whipping at their faces. Emma didn't look back, even as gunshots echoed behind them. By the time they reached the road, Nick was gone. Vanessa collapsed, sobbing. What now? Emma pulled out her phone and dialed the only number she could think of, one of the reporters who had been covering the story. "We're ready to go on record," Emma said, her voice steady. "Make sure to like, share, and comment below. Don't forget to subscribe for the final part of the story." Emma's breathing was ragged as she and Vanessa stumbled down the empty road. The cabin was gone. Nick was gone. And now they were completely exposed. Vanessa grabbed Emma's arm. "What do we do? We can't keep running." Emma's hands trembled, but her voice was steady. "We're not running anymore. We're going to end this." Vanessa wiped her tears and nodded. "How?" Emma pulled out her phone and scrolled to the reporter's number. "By going public if they want to bury us, we're taking them with us." But before Emma could press call, headlights appeared in the distance, a black SUV. Vanessa panicked. "It's them!" Emma shoved her phone into her pocket. "Stay behind me." The SUV skidded to a stop, and 2 men jumped out. They weren't wearing masks this time. These men wanted Emma to know exactly who they were. One of them stepped closer, a gun in his hand. "You should have walked away." Emma's mind raced. She couldn't outrun them. She couldn't fight them. But she wasn't going down without a fight. Before the man could raise his gun, a set of blinding headlights flooded the road. A second car screeched to a stop, and Nick jumped out, gun blazing. "Get down!" he shouted. Emma and Vanessa hit the ground as shots rang out. Nick dropped one of the men, but the other fired back, hitting Nick in the shoulder. "Nick!" Emma screamed. Nick fell to his knees, but he managed to fire one last shot, taking the second man down. Emma ran to him, pressing her hands against the wound. "You're going to be okay," she said, but Nick's breathing was shallow. "You need to go," he rasped. "Take the drive and finish it." "No, I'm not leaving you." Nick grabbed her hand. "You don't have a choice." Vanessa pulled Emma back. "We have to go." Tears streamed down Emma's face as she let Vanessa drag her away. She looked back one last time to see Nick collapse against the car, his gun still clutched in his hand. They drove in silence, Emma's knuckles white against the steering wheel. Vanessa finally broke the silence. "We can't do this alone." Emma swallowed hard. "We don't have to." She pulled into the parking lot of the local news station. Vanessa's eyes widened. "Are you sure about this?" Emma's jaw tightened. "I'm done hiding." They walked inside, and Emma asked for Sarah Jenkins, the investigative reporter who had been covering the story. Within minutes, Sarah led them into a private room, her eyes wide with curiosity. "I need you to promise me something," Emma said, sliding the flash drive across the table. Sarah leaned forward. What's on it? Enough to take down everyone involved, Emma said. But once you open it, there's no going back. They'll come after you too. Sarah's expression hardened. I've been waiting for a story like this my whole career. Emma nodded. Then let's do this. Sarah plugged in the drive and scanned the files. Her eyes widened. This is huge. Vanessa shifted nervously. How soon can you get it out? Sarah pulled out her phone. I'll make some calls. We're going live tonight. Emma exhaled. It was finally happening. But as she looked at Vanessa, she saw the fear still lingering in her eyes. They won't stop, Vanessa whispered. Emma took her hand. Then we won't either. Hours later, the story broke. News anchors repeated the words, money laundering, fraud, and corruption, as the evidence poured in. Names of high-profile politicians and CEOs flashed across the screen, but the celebrations were short-lived. Emma's phone rang, and her stomach dropped when she saw the number. Ryan, she answered, her voice cold. What do you want? You think this is over? His voice was sharp and panicked. You don't know what you've done. These people, they'll burn everything to the ground before they let you win. Emma clenched her fist. I'm not afraid of them. You should be, Ryan hissed, because now you're a target, and so is everyone you care about. The line went dead. Vanessa's voice shook. What did he say? Emma stared at her phone. That this isn't over. Moments later, the power in the station flickered. Then it went out completely. Emma's heart pounded. They're here. Sarah grabbed a flashlight. We have backup generators. Vanessa's voice cracked. But what if that's not enough? Emma stood, her jaw set. Then we fight. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Growing louder, Emma grabbed a chair and motioned for Vanessa and Sarah to stay back. The door burst open, and Emma swung the chair, knocking the first man down. But there were more. Vanessa screamed as one of the men grabbed her. Emma fought to pull her free, but the man shoved her to the ground. Sarah hit the panic button under the desk, triggering the station's silent alarm. Seconds later, sirens wailed outside, and the men scattered. Emma pulled Vanessa to her feet and ran toward the exit. Police swarmed the building, arresting 2 of the attackers, but the others got away. Emma collapsed against the wall, gasping for air. Sarah ran up to her. The broadcast went out before we could finish. Emma's heart sank. So it was all for nothing? Sarah shook her head. No, enough of it aired to make people ask questions. The story's out. They can't hide it now. Vanessa clutched Emma's arm. But what if they try? Emma looked at the police dragging the attackers away, and then back at Vanessa. Then we keep fighting. Make sure to like, share, and comment below. Don't forget to subscribe for the final chapter of this story. Emma sat in the back of the police station, her hands trembling as she clutched a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. Vanessa sat beside her, arms wrapped tightly around herself, staring blankly at the wall. Neither of them had spoken in the last 15 minutes, and the silence was starting to feel suffocating. The door creaked open, and Detective Cole stepped inside, his face grim. He tossed a folder onto the table and sat down. We got 2 of them, he said, nodding toward the evidence bag sitting on the table. Inside was a handgun and a burner phone. The others are still out there, and based on what we found, you're not out of danger yet. Emma's stomach twisted. What did you find? Cole flipped open the folder, revealing surveillance photos of her house, her office, and even pictures of her kids at school. This wasn't just about intimidation, Cole said, leaning closer. They were planning something big. We're talking abduction, or worse. Vanessa's voice cracked. They were going to kill us. Emma pushed the folder away and stood up. We can't wait for them to come back. We have to go after them first. Cole raised an eyebrow. You're already in the middle of this mess. Don't make it worse. Emma's eyes narrowed. It's already worse. Vanessa grabbed Emma's arm. Wait. You're not thinking straight. Let the police handle this. Emma shook her head. The police are limited by rules. These people don't play by the rules, and neither will I. Cole leaned back in his chair. You're going to get yourself killed. Not if I get to them first. Emma stormed out of the room, and Vanessa scrambled after her. Emma, wait. Emma turned, her voice shaking. They're not going to stop, Vanessa. We already pushed them into a corner. Now we need to make sure they can't fight back. Vanessa hesitated, but then nodded. What do we do? Emma's mind raced. We make the rest of the evidence public. All of it. Not just what we gave Sarah. We release everything so there's nowhere left for them to hide. Vanessa paled. That could make things worse. Or it could save our lives. They drove to Sarah's house, arriving just before dawn. The reporter looked exhausted, but determined. Did they come after you too? Emma asked as Sarah let them inside. Sarah nodded. Phone calls, threats. My editor already pulled the plug on the story, but it's too late for them to cover it up now. Emma set the flash drive down on the table. Then let's make sure of that. Sarah hesitated. Emma, if we go through with this, you're putting a target on your back, and on your kids. Emma swallowed hard. I know, but I'm not letting them win. Sarah plugged in the drive and started uploading the files to multiple cloud servers. Once this is out, there's no stopping it. Emma leaned back, exhaling sharply. Good. But before Sarah could hit send, Vanessa's phone buzzed. She looked down and froze. It's Ryan. Emma grabbed the phone and answered it. What do you want? Ryan's voice was panicked. You need to get out of there now. Emma's blood ran cold. What are you talking about? They know where you are, Ryan hissed. I tried to stop them, but they're already on their way. Emma's heart slammed against her ribs. How much time do we have? Not enough, Ryan said. You have to run. Emma hung up and grabbed Vanessa. We need to go now. Sarah yanked the flash drive out of her computer and stuffed it into her pocket. Out the back. They burst through the back door just as headlights lit up the driveway. Emma's pulse quickened as she spotted the black SUVs pulling up. They're here, Vanessa whispered. Emma scanned the yard and spotted the fence. Over there. They ran, ducking behind bushes and garbage cans as men poured out of the SUVs. Flashlights cut through the darkness, and Emma pulled Vanessa down behind a shed. What now? Vanessa whispered. Emma's jaw tightened. We fight. Sarah pulled out a can of pepper spray and clutched it tightly. We can't outrun them. Emma peeked around the corner and spotted the driveway. We don't have to, Vanessa frowned. What are you talking about? Emma pointed. We take their car. Vanessa's eyes widened. Are you insane? Probably. They sprinted toward the SUVs, and Emma smashed the window of the first one with a brick. The alarm blared, but she didn't stop. She climbed into the driver's seat and hot-wired the car while Sarah and Vanessa piled into the back. Go! Sarah screamed. Emma slammed the gas pedal, and the SUV tore out of the driveway, tires screeching. The men shouted and opened fire, bullets shattering the rear window. Vanessa ducked, screaming, while Sarah tried to shield herself. Emma swerved, narrowly missing a telephone pole as she sped onto the main road. They're following us! Sarah yelled. Emma glanced in the mirror and saw two more SUVs closing in. Her hands shook, but she forced herself to focus. We need to lose them, Vanessa pointed. Take the next left. Emma veered onto a side street, tires squealing as the SUVs followed. Hang on! She slammed on the brakes and skidded into an alleyway, clipping a dumpster as she turned. The SUVs flew past the entrance, missing them by inches. Emma didn't wait. She floored the gas and sped off in the opposite direction. When they finally reached the highway, Vanessa collapsed into the seat, gasping for air. We're alive, Sarah whispered. Emma's hands trembled as she gripped the wheel. Not yet. We need to finish this. She turned onto a dirt road and stopped at a secluded parking lot. What now? Vanessa asked. Emma handed Sarah the flash drive. Get this to every reporter you know, every news outlet, every blog, blow this wide open. Sarah hesitated. And what about you? Emma's eyes hardened. I'm ending this. Vanessa's voice shook. You can't go back there. Emma's jaw tightened. I'm not letting them control me anymore. Sarah took the flash drive and nodded. I'll make sure they can't cover this up. Emma stepped out of the car, the weight of what she was about to do sinking in. Make sure to like, share, and comment below. Don't forget to subscribe for the thrilling conclusion in the next chapter. Emma stood in the darkened parking lot, her heart racing as Sarah's car disappeared down the road, taking the flash drive, and their last chance at survival, with it. Vanessa clutched Emma's arm. You can't go back there. It's suicide. Emma didn't flinch. I don't have a choice. Vanessa shook her head. Yes, you do. We can wait this out until the story spreads. Let the police handle it. Emma turned, her voice sharp. We've tried that, and look where it got us. Nick's dead. They almost killed us tonight. If we don't end this now, they'll keep coming until we're gone. Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. But what if we don't make it? Emma's expression softened, but her voice didn't waver. We'll make it. Vanessa hesitated before finally nodding. I'm coming with you. Emma wanted to argue, to tell her to run and save herself, but she knew Vanessa wouldn't listen. So instead, she nodded and motioned for her to get in the car. The drive back to Ryan's apartment was tense. Vanessa kept looking over her shoulder, and Emma's grip on the wheel never loosened. She could feel the walls closing in. By the time they pulled into the parking garage, Emma's nerves were frayed. She killed the engine and turned to Vanessa. If anything happens, Vanessa cut her off. Don't, we're in this together. They stepped out of the car, their footsteps echoing in the empty garage. Emma's heart pounded as she approached the door to Ryan's building. She pressed the buzzer, and after a few tense seconds, his voice crackled through the speaker. Who is it? It's Emma. There was a pause, and then the door unlocked. Ryan was waiting for them inside, pacing nervously. His shirt was wrinkled, and he looked like he hadn't slept in days. You shouldn't be here, he said the moment they stepped inside. Emma pushed past him. We don't have time for this. Ryan's eyes darted to Vanessa, then back to Emma. They're watching me. They could show up any minute. Then start talking. Ryan ran a hand through his hair. You don't understand. Emma grabbed his arm, her voice sharp. Stop lying. We know about the accounts, the shell companies, the blackmail. You're out of excuses. Ryan, start talking, or we're both dead. Ryan's shoulders slumped, and for the first time, Emma saw real fear in his eyes. They don't care about the money anymore, he said. It's the files that drive. It's not just about the laundering. It connects them to murders, cover-ups, political bribes. If it gets out, they all go down. Vanessa's voice shook. Then why didn't you leave? Ryan looked at her. Because they don't let you leave. I tried to back out months ago, and they threatened to kill me. And you. Emma's stomach dropped. So you dragged us into it instead? Ryan's voice broke. I was trying to protect you. Emma shook her head. No, you were trying to protect yourself. Before Ryan could respond, the lights flickered. Vanessa stepped back. What was that? Ryan paled. They're here. Emma didn't hesitate. She grabbed Vanessa's arm and pulled her toward the back door, but Ryan stopped them. There's no way out, he said. They'll have the exits covered. Emma turned to him, fire in her eyes. Then we make our own way out. Ryan hesitated, but finally nodded. He reached under the couch and pulled out a handgun, handing it to Emma. Vanessa's eyes widened. Where did you get that? Does it matter? Emma snapped. They moved quickly, barricading the door and shutting off the lights. Emma positioned herself near the window, gun raised. The first shot shattered the glass, and Vanessa screamed. Get down! Emma shouted, pulling her behind the couch. Ryan fired back, hitting one of the men as they tried to climb through the window. But there were more, too many to stop. We're trapped! Vanessa cried. Emma's mind raced. Not yet! She turned to Ryan. You said they want the files, right? Ryan nodded. Emma grabbed her phone and dialed Sarah. Emma? Sarah's voice was breathless. They're here, Emma said. I need you to release everything now. Are you sure? Emma's voice was firm. Do it. She hung up and turned to Ryan. We just made ourselves the biggest threat they've ever faced. They won't kill us. Not until they know how much we gave her. Ryan's eyes widened. That's insane. It's our only chance. The gunfire stopped, and for a moment there was silence. Then a voice called out, Emma Carter. We know you're in there. Vanessa froze. Oh my God. Emma steadied herself. What do you want? You know what we want, the files. Emma glanced at Ryan. They think we still have them. Ryan swallowed hard. What now? Emma stepped closer to the door. You're too late. The files are already out. There was a pause. Then the voice turned cold. You're bluffing. Emma's heart raced, but her voice didn't waver. Check the news. Another pause. Then footsteps. They're leaving, Vanessa whispered. But Emma didn't relax. She kept her gun raised, waiting. Finally, The footsteps faded. Ryan collapsed against the wall. We're alive. Emma lowered the gun, but her hands still shook. Not for long if we don't finish this. She turned to Vanessa. Call Sarah. Make sure the files are out. All of them. Vanessa nodded and grabbed her phone. Ryan looked at Emma. What happens now? Emma's eyes hardened. Now we make sure they can't come back. Make sure to like, share, and comment below. Don't forget to subscribe for the explosive finale in the next chapter. The sun rose slowly, casting long shadows over the parking lot outside Ryan's apartment. The night's chaos had left Emma drained, but there was no time to rest. The files were out, the news was spreading, and now, the fallout had begun. Vanessa sat on the couch, her knees pulled to her chest. She hadn't spoken much since the gunfire stopped. Emma didn't blame her. They had survived, but just barely. Ryan paced the room, running a hand through his hair. It's all over the news, names, photos, accounts. It's everywhere. Emma didn't look up. Good. Ryan stopped. Good. Do you have any idea what's about to happen? Emma's voice was cold. Yeah, they're going to run, Ryan. Every single one of them is going to scatter and try to save themselves. But it won't work. They can't hide from this. Vanessa finally looked up. And what about us? They're not just going to forget we did this. Emma sat down beside her. They won't, but they'll be too busy cleaning up their own mess to come after us. Ryan shook his head. You don't know these people. No, Emma said, standing. But I know what fear looks like, and they're terrified right now. Her phone buzzed. It was Sarah. They're panicking, Sarah said. Federal agents raided 3 offices this morning. Arrest warrants are already out for half the people named in the files. Emma exhaled sharply. And the others? On the run, Sarah said. But it's only a matter of time. Emma hung up and looked at Ryan. It's over. But Ryan shook his head. Not for me. Vanessa stood. What do you mean? Ryan's voice broke. I still helped them. The files prove it. I'll be arrested too. Emma stared at him, unsure if she should feel angry or relieved. You made your choices, Ryan. Now you live with them. Vanessa stepped closer. But you can still do the right thing. Testify. Tell them everything you know. Ryan swallowed hard. And spend the rest of my life in prison? Emma's voice softened. Maybe, but at least you'll know you did the right thing. Ryan looked at her, and for the first time in a long time, Emma saw something real in his eyes. Remorse. I'll do it, he said quietly. I'll testify. Vanessa let out a shaky breath, and Emma turned away, blinking back tears. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was something. 3 weeks later, the headlines told the rest of the story. The syndicate had collapsed. Dozens of arrests, millions recovered, and Ryan Carter's testimony had sealed their fate. Emma watched the coverage from her living room, her kids playing quietly in the next room. It was over. Vanessa walked in, holding 2 coffee cups. You should be proud. Emma shook her head. I'm just glad it's done. Vanessa sat beside her. Is it, though? Emma smiled faintly. For now. The doorbell rang, and Emma froze. But when she opened the door, it was Sarah. You won, Sarah said with a grin, holding up her phone. The story's already being called the biggest corruption scandal in years. Emma stepped back and motioned for Sarah to come in. But you didn't come here to celebrate, Emma said, reading the look on Sarah's face. Sarah hesitated before holding out another folder. You need to see this. Emma opened it, her stomach tightening. It's not over, Sarah said. There are more players, more money, and they're already trying to cover their tracks. Vanessa groaned. You've got to be kidding me. Emma closed the folder and set it aside. I'll deal with it tomorrow. Vanessa and Sarah exchanged glances. Tomorrow? Sarah asked. Emma nodded. Tonight, I'm just going to breathe. Vanessa smiled. For once, I like the sound of that. As the 3 women sat down, Emma felt something she hadn't felt in weeks. Relief. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but she knew she could handle it, because no matter what came next, she wasn't running anymore, and neither were the people who had tried to silence her. Thank you so much for sticking with this story until the end. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like, share, and comment below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more thrilling recaps, just like this one. See you in the next video.